Let's get the analysis. Standing by for us is Samuel Ramani of the Royal United Services Institute. Samuel, always a pleasure to have you on France 24. So it seems at this point it's enter Kim Jong-un into the Ukraine war. What does this move by North Korea sending troops to Kursk? What kind of possibilities does it open up for the next stages?
Well, I don't know how much of an impact North Korea's troops are actually going to have on the frontline conditions when you consider the sheer rate of attrition and the high level of casualties that the Russians have lost in Ukraine. Even if there are 12,000 North Korean troops that are being dispatched to the front lines, it's important to keep in mind that the Wagner Group lost 21,000 forces in Bakhmut in a matter of months. So I don't know how long these North Korean troops are necessarily going to last on the battlefield, but they certainly add additional manpower to Russia's defense of Kursk at a time when they're trying to press their advantage on three key areas of the Ukrainian front line, and they don't want to divert forces from Donetsk, Zaporizhia, or from Kharkiv.
What does this tell us then, this latest time with North Korea, about the state of play then for Putin and for Russia?
Well, I think that this is a strategic move from Vladimir Putin. I don't think it's necessarily a move that's motivated purely by desperation. I think it's aimed at making sure that Russia can press its advantage offensively with enough manpower where it needs, avoid a larger draft of Russians, and bring foreign fighters onto the front lines to plug holes in the front lines. And this is something that the Russians have been trying to do from the very beginning of the war. They reached out to the Assad regime, tried to get Syrians on board. They reportedly tried to reach out to Haftar's forces to get Libyans on board. They've been recruiting stealthily mercenaries from Central Asia and Africa. But now they finally got one country that was willing to actually deploy large numbers of its own troops. And this is helpful for Putin's war.
It sounds like from what you're saying that these North Koreans will just be sent into what's been referred to as, and it's a horrible phrase, the meat grinder, basically going to the front as cannon fodder.
Well, I think that that's what the large majority of them are going to end up doing. I think that not all of them, though. I think that there's going to be some North Korean technical advisors who are going to be helping the Russians use their weaponry. In some parts of the front line, there was a recent report that half of the shells that Russia are using originate from North Korea. Many of those shells blew up in the air when they first arrived. People have attributed that to product defects, but that may also be because the Russians are not used to necessarily using the level of equipment, or are unclear how interoperable some of the equipment that the North Koreans are giving them, like Quad-11 missiles are, with the Iranian drones. So some North Koreans will certainly be kept aside as special forces, as engineers. They will avoid perishing. There's embassy staff on the ground that will help them learn Russian and integrate with the Russian forces. But the vast majority, I think, will end up becoming cannon fodder or meat grinder, as you said.
Indeed, and that is an extremely sobering thought. One wonders what this means now for Ukraine, because Zelensky is calling for more resources, but also he's going to renew that plea, isn't he, to be allowed to use the weaponry supplied by the West beyond Ukraine's borders. Is this one of the reasons that might play into that equation to say, yes, okay, go ahead and do that?
Well, I think that the arrival of North Korean forces is certainly going to harden the U.S.'s calculus, especially because there have been some Russian sources, including one who spoke to the Washington Post, who was an ex-Kremlin insider, who said that Russia's deployment of North Korean forces are precisely a retaliation for the U.S. and other Western powers greenlighting Ukraine to strike across the borders into Russian territory. So if that is really what is motivating Russia's deployment of North Korean forces as well, peak in rage at what the U.S. and NATO allies have done by enabling Ukraine to strike in and by enabling Ukraine to carry out the Kursk offensive, then I think the West will respond in kind and allow the Ukrainians to deepen strikes onto training centers and maybe areas where the North Koreans are operating inside Russia, and certainly use NATO-class weaponry indiscriminately across the broader established front lines.
Samuel, thank you very much for joining us here in France 24. Samuel Ramani, Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute. We're watching for all developments in Ukraine on the ground and diplomatic.